This is the land, the public land. It belongs to you and me. More than 300 million acres of land. More than an acre for each American. The bulk of the land is in the western states, including Alaska. Far from many Americans, yet this land is important to us all, no matter where we live. It's managed by the Interior Department's Bureau of Land Management. Hello, I'm E.G. Marshall. A few decades ago, it was land nobody wanted. It was the leftovers of the historic public domain, which once stretched from the Appalachian Mountains to the Pacific Ocean, nearly 2 billion acres. To encourage settlement and development of the West, the federal government offered generous land grants to new states, to agricultural colleges, and other educational institutions. Land to build roads, canals, and railroads. Then there was the famous Homestead Act of 1862, now repealed, that granted 160 acres to settlers who would farm and live on them for 5 years. By the middle of the 20th century, Congress and the American people had transferred 1 billion acres of land from the public domain to private or local government ownership. Additional millions of acres of the public domain were set aside as national parks, wildlife refuges, wild and scenic rivers, military installations, wilderness areas, national forests, and national monuments. Most of the land that's left of the public domain is located in the West, the fastest growing region of the nation. These western states, in an extremely short period of time, have grown and matured. The region has also urbanized to an astonishing degree. The West's rapid growth places new and stronger demands on the public lands and their resources. The cities need land to expand. They need water for homes and industries. They seek development of the public land resources to keep their economies going. On top of these local demands are the needs of the nation. The public lands today are being called upon to play a central role in the life of the nation as it looks for new ways to meet its growing demands for energy, for food and fiber, for timber, water, and recreation. Controversy over the use of the resources of the public lands has intensified in recent years. The Bureau must resolve conflicting interests within the multiple use and sustained yield principles of the 1976 Federal Land Policy and Management Act. The act directs the Bureau to administer the public lands for the benefit of all Americans, and managing resources for everyone is not an easy business. The Bureau of Land Management prides itself in being a good neighbor and a multiple-use agency. It tries, with the help of the public, to accommodate as many uses as possible in the same place. But by law, this has to be done in ways that prevent unnecessary environmental damage or keep damage to a minimum. This area in New Mexico is a good example of how the Bureau applies the multiple-use concept. Cattle have grazed here since Spanish explorers entered the area in the 17th century. It is also a place important for natural gas production. The two uses are compatible, if properly planned. Exploration and development of the gas resource is carefully supervised. Even the appearance of the landscape is considered. Industrial equipment and structures are painted in colors that blend with surrounding landforms. Cattle graze without regard for the oil derricks. Multiple-use management pays off here by allowing uses that occur both above the ground and below. Other values must be considered. Dinosaurs once roamed this land. Fossils of a 150-million-year-old dinosaur have been discovered in these foothills of central New Mexico. The valuable remains are cared for while mining of important gypsum deposits takes place nearby. In another area of New Mexico, one that appears like a landscape from out of space, are the Bisty Badlands. Here, care is taken to protect a special scenic quality. There are unusual rock formations and petrified wood, the latter fascinating remains of an ancient forest. The past is found in many places, in fossils far older than man, in architecture and rock symbols of the first Americans, in ghost towns where, only a few generations ago, there was a bustle of human drama, hope, failure, success. Beside a road to a uranium mine in southeastern Utah are ruins of the cliff-dwelling Anasazi Indians. Periods of drought in the 12th and 13th centuries and the threat of nomadic tribes from the north are believed to be reasons the Anasazi left their homes. These ancient abodes and the silence that envelops them are protected from the traffic of heavy vehicles moving to and from the mine. The area also is protected from looters, since some of the priceless cultural remains already have been destroyed. Much that we value today, such as ancient ruins, was of scant interest to settlers 150 years ago. Anything between them and where they wanted to go was an obstacle. One of the greatest obstacles was Colorado's magnificent Rocky Mountain Range. It was part of the land nobody wanted, until gold was discovered in the Rockies. Then miners with a different motive poured across the rugged landscape. One of the early means of transportation was the single track of the narrow gauge railways. Every day, the Denver and Rio Grande chugged its way through the mountains between Durango and Silverton. Once it carried the implements of a mining boom. Now, tourists ride the same precipitous route. Mining continues in this high mountain setting, and as in the past, much of the gold, zinc, lead, and silver are mined from the public land. In some places, the past and present seem to overlap, and it's hard to tell them apart. Such is the case in South Pass, Wyoming. Restoration of this boom town from the 1870s is near completion. The shaft and ore tracks of the town's most lucrative gold mine are part of the past being preserved. South Pass is part of yesterday, part of today. Porterhouse steaks and pouches of gold are old appetites man still enjoys. But he has added a keen new hunger and insatiable demand for energy sources. On the jagged overthrust of the western Montana range of the Rockies, there is natural gas. How much? No one knows, but the resource is vast. The sensitive environment includes habitat for grizzly bear, elk, Rocky Mountain wolf, Montana grayling, and cutthroat trout. Across the state, another energy resource of great value, coal, is being taken in harmony with other resources. The Decker mine is the largest producing coal mine in the United States, each year providing nearly 11 million tons of coal. Surface mining removes the top layer of earth to expose the seam of coal, often lying only a few feet from the surface. Yet the land disturbed by mining must be restored. In time, the land returns to former uses. Nearby, northern pike spawn in an environment created and maintained by the mine operation. The water used to fill the marsh is pumped from sedimentation ponds. The fish produced are used to stock the nearby Tongue River Reservoir. The marsh also provides nesting places for Canada geese and several species of ducks. Far to the north, at a place where some of the waterfowl begin their flyways, is a vast new frontier, Alaska. From west to east, the state equals the distance between Los Angeles and New York City. Alaska has a few bustling cities, but the hallmark of this great land is solitude. Sometimes the unbelievable silence is broken by the cry of a bird or the call of a wolf. In other places, the glaciers speak, grinding and groaning as they inch across the land, splintering into deep crevasses, yielding milky waters that race away, searching for the sea. One great illusion of Alaska is the barren appearance of its tundra. but it is a great blanket of delicate, minute plant life that stretches for hundreds of miles. Alaska's awesome beauty is matched only by the bounty of its natural resources. One of the most important and one of the most critical is oil. Even in a land of superlatives, the Alaska Pipeline is remarkable. Used to transport oil from the North Slope, it is one of the most dramatic and ambitious efforts of modern industry. The pipeline was created with painstaking care to keep environmental losses to a minimum, and at the same time, provide America with the lifeblood of our society. The pipeline is delivering great quantities of oil through a corridor nearly 800 miles long, passing over large expanses of tundra, climbing barren peaks, descending through thick forests. Millions of acres of Alaska's public lands have been set aside for Alaska natives. Before ownership can be transferred, the land must be surveyed. BLM sets up survey camps near native villages, which later will get title to the land. Alaska is a source of many treasures. How we manage these resources will provide the real test. The nation has learned the hard way in too many places. This may be our last chance to manage wisely. We have chosen the wise path along the meandering Snake River in southern Idaho by creating the Snake River Birds of Prey Natural Area. Here, in the largest raptor nesting area in the world, protection is given to hawks, eagles, and falcons. Through the combined efforts of federal, state, and private concerns, the endangered peregrine falcon has been reintroduced to the area. Eggs from captive birds are hatched in nurseries. The hatchlings, then, are transferred to wild prairie falcon nests. These close relatives of the peregrine falcon become willing foster parents. The peregrine is reestablishing its place in nature with help from man after reaching near extinction. Above the curling Snake River, the peregrine falcon continues to soar. Yet man and his endeavors also continue here, like livestock grazing, mining, hunting, and camping. The towering forests of Douglas fir along the coastline of Oregon can endure from generation to generation with care. The majestic trees serve the land from which they draw life. They benefit the soil, the watershed, and wildlife. Foresters work with nature for best results. Seeds chosen from the strongest stock are cultivated under greenhouse conditions. When seedlings reach the proper height and vitality, they are hand-planted in a cleared area. Thus begins the new cycle. Innovations in timber harvesting, such as balloon logging, protect the environment from needless loss. Protected watershed prevents erosion. Siltation of spawning beds would be disastrous to the thriving salmon fishery. A little farther to the south is another example of good watershed management, the Eagle Lake region near Susanville, California. Watershed practices have been so effective that even during the severe droughts of 1976 and 77, the lake did not suffer. These waters hold some of the finest rainbow trout found anywhere. Many a trophy has come from its depths. The stands of ponderosa pine are vital to the retention of water in the land, and this moisture is essential to grasses that feed the livestock. The outflow of the lake is not wasted. A tunnel discharge system distributes the water and broadens the benefits of the lake. The high plateaus above Eagle Lake are home for many wild horses. They are descendants of animals lost or abandoned since frontier times. Now protected by federal law, their population is growing too rapidly. They overgraze the natural grasses to their own detriment and to the detriment of wildlife and domestic livestock. The Bureau of Land Management is trying to bring the wild horse herds into balance. Excess horses are rounded up, guided by helicopters, as well as the traditional rider on horseback.
Once gathered in corrals, the horses may be adopted by people who will give them proper care. From the bowels of the earth, nature is once again offering us a rare gift. Beneath the earth in California, near the Pacific coast, lies another unique resource: geothermal steam. Here, molten rock comes close to the surface and heats trapped pools of water. Private companies and public utilities lease these lands and sink wells to tap the superheated pools. Steam roars from the earth under great pressure and is piped to large turbines. The electricity generated already is serving thousands of homes and places of business. Use of this resource is not a simple matter. In this area, the soil is easily eroded. Great caution has to be used in building roads and power lines. The noise of escaping steam has to be muffled. The sulfurous odor of the steam must be lessened.
There's close cooperation with local governments. An important resource is being used in ways that are considerate to the environment and to those who live nearby.
The majestic Sierra Nevada mountains, causing moisture-laden clouds to spill their cargo on the California slopes and arrive empty-handed at the borders of Nevada, perpetuating the arid Great Basin. Nevada, more than twice the size of Pennsylvania, more open public lands than any state other than Alaska, utilizes its most precious commodity, water, for the benefit of the greatest number of users. The endless horizons of sagebrush-covered public lands appear monotonous, yet produce one of the widest ranges of animal life. Cattle, sheep, wild horses and burros, deer and antelope feed on grasses sheltered by this sagebrush. Beneath the arid surface, the public lands are rich with gold and silver, copper and exotics. Barite, the drilling mud for oil and gas exploration, is in great abundance. And the desert responds to the Bureau of Land Management's changing of its sagebrush cover to grasses, to its introduction of water through pipelines and collectors, sustaining life for birds, animals, commerce, and people. Nature once again reminded us of her simple but harsh rules here in the San Simon Valley in southeastern Arizona. In 1934, this once lush, fertile valley was officially declared a disaster area. 50,000 cattle had overgrazed, destroying the grass. Erosion became rampant. The entire valley was threatened. To prevent disaster, Bureau of Land Management engineers designed a series of fan-shaped dams built from rocks and soil available in the area. The dams slowed the water. Silt was deposited. In this way, the river was regraded. Now it's active again. Not long ago, the area upriver would barely support 2 or 3 cattle per section of land. Now it supports 150 head on each section. As grass and thickets revived, birds and other wildlife returned. Fish thrive in the river.
The Bureau of Land Management is responsible for 12 million acres of public land in the California desert. The public land is intermingled with 13 million more acres of non-public land. Altogether, these 25 million acres make up 1/4 of the state. This area is equal in size to most of the New England states combined.
The California desert is more accessible to more people than any desert in the world. 12 million people live within easy driving distance from the Los Angeles-San Diego metropolitan area. 95% of the desert is within 3 miles of a roadway. There is a high degree of affluence, leisure time, and an endless array of fun machines. But the desert also is a place of traditional uses, grazing and mining. There are thriving ecosystems with thousands of species of animals and plants. Some of the plants and animals are on endangered lists. There are sensitive watersheds, pristine wilderness areas, areas with remnants of ancient culture, minerals with values estimated at billions of dollars. There are tremendous people demands, not only for escape from cities for recreation, but also for everyday necessities. More electricity, more oil and gas, more water. These demands mean more transmission lines, more pipelines. Each new delivery system takes a toll in a place where scars heal very slowly. To this stage, in 1976, came a new direction, the Federal Land Policy and Management Act. Part of the act created the California Desert Conservation Area. In the 4 years between passage of the law and completion of the desert plan, there were numerous resource inventories, public meetings, bitter tirades, calm reasoning. Finally, the plan was fashioned, to a great extent from what the public wanted. But because expectations and demands change, the Bureau of Land Management and the public will have the opportunity to amend the plan in the future.
I understand that you defined it. Okay.
200 years ago, our national well-being depended on an act of unique wisdom, creation of the public domain. A vigorous people used that resource base to build the greatest of all nations. In the process, there was waste and some losses beyond recall. But we've learned from those losses. Now, 200 years later, we turn again to the land, this time determined to avoid mistakes of the past. The competition is enormous for the resources found on the public lands. It is the Bureau of Land Management's job to make sure that all the potential uses and the vast array of interests are considered. The public will is not monolithic. We hear it in a great variety of voices, many different needs, different expectations. The solutions as to how we use the public lands are not likely to please any one group entirely, but they are more acceptable to more people and therefore more workable solutions. These are your public lands, the last of them. As Will Rogers once put it, land is valuable because it's not being made anymore. This is E.G. Marshall.